Okay, and we are officially live. Welcome everyone to our Measure and Grow Agile and Digital Capabilities webinar. My name is Mohammed Sangrodi, and I am a digital consultant at IQ Business. And I'm joined here today by our esteemed guest, Sally Ilata, who is the CEO and founder of AgilityHealth. And we're looking forward to you sharing some of your thoughts and experience with us, and also some of your lessons learned in developing the digital transformation radar, as well as really excited to announce our partnership between IQ Business and AgilityHealth, which puts us in quite a key position within driving business agility across companies in Africa, as well as measuring their output. So Sally, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us and our audience. Just to go over a couple of house rules, or just a couple of keynotes and points. So we will be monitoring the chat, and we're encouraging all of our listeners to engage with us as much as possible. As you start posting some of your comments in the chat, we'll see how we can actually address some of that and bring it into the discussion, and really looking forward to it. So Sally, without further ado, I think I'll hand over to you a little bit just to give us a quick background around your, or a quick introduction of yourself, and a little bit of a background around what is AgilityHealth and the company that you started.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Mo, for the warm introduction. Hello, everyone from Africa. I'm originally from Africa, from Sudan. So this is like talking to my home country, my home continent. So very excited to be here with you. My name is Sally Ilata. I'm the CEO and founder of AgilityHealth. I started the company about 12 years ago. And what we focus on right now is scaling and accelerating the journey towards business agility. And of course, that is powered by digital and agile and DevOps and product management, all these amazing tools in the toolkit that we need. And my passion is really around measurement and continuous improvement. I totally feel like if we are able to help people understand where they are today, create a definition of what does great look like, what is the maturity roadmap to get better. We call it crawl, walk, run, fly. And then have them on a continuous basis, reassess, come up with some, specific things they want to do to get better, take action on that. Nothing can really stop a company from moving forward, whether it's digital, whether it's DevOps, whether it's agile, leadership, culture, any of these areas. If you put a focus on defining what success looks like, you measure, you improve against it, that's what we believe in, is continuous improvement. In terms of the agility, what is AgilityHealth? I'll just share my screen real quickly to give you guys a quick background. But again, we accelerate building digital talent and enabling enterprise business agility. We always say we want to make new ways of working a reality, not just a statement. And so we are known for this learn, measure, grow, and scale talent. Those are the three capabilities. The learning platform is agilevideos.com. There's a lot of companies that are early on the journey. They'll tell you, we're not even ready to measure yet because my people are new. Can I educate them? Can I, what does Agile even look like? What are Agile ways of working? And so that's, agilevideos.com is the largest platform for dedicated to videos around business agility, Agile, all of that. Measure and Grow is our measurement platform, and what we focus on there. So you'll see the beautiful radars. We have many beautiful radars, but the thought leadership that we have is when an organization can bring maturity, performance, and outcomes together in one view. When I can help you understand how are your people doing from a practices perspective, that's what maturity is. Performance is quantitative metrics around output. Outcomes are like OKRs. Did we actually achieve the results that we're trying to achieve? And so that's the power of our platform, is combining these things into one visual. And again, yes, we have multiple radars, and excited to talk today about specifically the digital transformation one and enterprise business agility.
Fantastic. And looking forward to that stimulating discussion as well. And I think one of the things that became a lot or apparent over the past couple of months, or over the past couple of years, we can say now, since the start of the pandemic, is a lot of organizations are actually trying to fast track some of their digital transformation strategies. And I remember reading an article written by Bias a couple of months back, saying that it's no longer the big fish eating the small fish, but it's rather, how can you adapt your organization as quickly as possible to these ever-changing environments. And a lot of organizations are putting a lot of focus on digital transformation as an enabler to do that. And while a lot of companies had originally had digital transformation strategies, I think with the introduction of COVID-19 and some of the challenges imposed due to COVID-19, there's really been a shift within that specific space. And Sally, one of the things like we're keen to understand as well is or obviously unpack a little bit more in terms of what is a digital transformation radar and how can it actually be practically used. You did mention that you're going to learn, measure, and grow. So keen to understand how do you actually leverage off that toolkit to actually determine where you are at the moment and where is it that you need to go. But before we go there, you mentioned a couple of times the notion of enterprise business agility. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes around enterprise business agility and really understand what does that actually mean.
Great question. And I'm going to ask it right back at you, Mo, and to the audience that's listening over here. And notice the question, when I tell you that your organization has achieved business agility, what does that mean to you? How would you describe the new ways of working, the capabilities? What does it feel like to work in a company that has achieved business agility? I'm happy to hear from you, Mo. But everybody who's listening to us online, I'd like you to start in the chat submitting your answers, and those will be flowing to us as well. What does it mean that I didn't say agile, so please don't say, they're adopting Scrum. I'm saying you've achieved business agility. Mo, you get to go first.
100%. So I would imagine, and I hope that I'm going to get this right as well. So agile, or the fundamentals or the principles around agile, is how can you inspect and adapt as quickly as possible within certain key environments to really start harnessing the power of agility. And I know it's going to be a double connotation, but in my mind, it would be how quick is your company able to adapt to change, and how are you able to incrementally provide value or show value as an organization level, as opposed to rather a project team level. In my mind, that is pretty much what that would mean. It's equipping you with the right maturity, mentality as an organization to adapt to those changes as and when they come along, because it's an ever-changing environment, and being able to adapt to that change, I think, is vitally important for the survival and growth of many organizations.
I love it. So your answer was very focused on adapting to change and then iteratively delivering value. I love it. Do we get any answers from the folks online, or do you guys want me to share?
Just having a look in the chat. I have one person saying that it's the ability to adapt as quickly as possible. And I've got another couple of comments coming in saying that, it's pretty much revolving around the ability to adapt your organization.
Look at you. You guys already read my mind. I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to go look at the definition of what is business agility. There's no right or wrong answer for what is business agility, but I want you to know that there's a couple of definitions. One of them is from me, which is the ability to adapt to change, learn and pivot, deliver at speed, and thrive in a competitive market, because gone are the days where big companies eat small. Today, fast companies eat the slow. And the other definition was just released and published by my friend Evan Laybourne in the new report that I would ask that everybody go download. It's a set of organizational capabilities, behaviors, and ways of working that afford our business the freedom to achieve its purpose, no matter what the future brings. So as you can see, I focused in my definition more around the end state of what what it looks like, which is the ability to change, learn, deliver at speed, and thrive. And Evan gave us a little bit more about the how you're going to get there, the capabilities, the behaviors, and the ways of working. So that's really what business agility, and I think that, whether it's digital or agile or the structure of our organization, those are all enablers. But if you ask a business person or an executive, what do they want? Even when they say, I want digital, it's so they can compete in the market. So at the end of the day, the really ultimate objective is business agility. I have a short video that I wanted to play. Are you guys okay with videos? Can we play a short video? All right. This is the summary. I mean, I can give you just an hour, or I can just play this 5-minute video that will explain. And this is a really great executive level. We actually designed it for a very senior executive here in the United States in a financial firm. And then everybody loved it. And we're like, okay, we're just going to share it with the world, because it really has a very good example of what's happening today, and what does it look like in the future. Let's go ahead and watch.
Hi, I'm Sally Alada, founder of AgilityHealth. And here at AgilityHealth, we are very passionate about accelerating our customers' enterprise business agility journey by helping them measure what matters. As we've worked with many customers, we're starting to see some common challenges and common patterns and solutions. So what I wanted to do is just draw this picture for you. Let's call this demand and capacity. Let's look at it from this perspective. On the demand side, the first challenge you're going to hear from customers and enterprises is enterprise planning is painful. There is too much focus on work and output. So you'll see lots of initiatives, deliverables, epic stories, but not a lot of focus on outcomes. You'll also see that there's many competing business priorities that are coming in through silos, and everybody feels like their priority is number one. Another challenge is there's no discovery or validation of the ideas, and there's a lot of idea generators, multiple people with lots of great ideas. The problem that this causes is many of these ideas are actually duplicate. So you could have Joe and Adam and Jamie over here all asking for the same thing, but in different ways. As you go down through this funnel, you're going to realize that teams are not designed to optimize the flow of value. Teams today are all organized based on who reports to who. And so in order for you to get anything done, there's a lot of bottlenecks. There's a lot of shared service teams that are really over capacity. And there's a lot of handoffs and dependencies between them. As you come closer to the actual teams that get the work done, what you're going to see is they're overwhelmed. Teams are burning out. They will tell you they are buried in never-ending backlogs. The good news is by using Agile, we've started to organize our work a little bit better. So we have backlogs and we have cadences and we plan well, but it's still never ending. Teams have no time to be creative or to solve problems the right way. Like, remember those 3 different features that we're all asking for the same thing? Nobody has time to focus on that. So this is a summary of some of the problems that we're seeing. And one of my quotes here that customers like is, if you want flow, stop the flooding. So let's take a look at this picture in a different way. How could we redraw this? Again, let's look at demand, discovery, and then let's flow outcomes. So this funnel looks a little bit different in that at the beginning, I want to create portfolio teams. This is a missing gap that we have today. We built teams and we built teams of teams, but we have not yet structured portfolio management teams that could really organize the work at the very top of the funnel. Portfolio teams really should be planning based on outcomes. What are my 3-year outcomes? What are my 1-year outcomes? And what are my quarterly outcomes? Those 1-year outcomes will map to your initiatives and your epics, and those quarterly outcomes will map to your deliverables or your features. Make sure that these outcomes, as they come into this funnel, are going through discovery. The purpose of discovery is to validate your ideas before you invest a lot in actually delivering them. Are these ideas valuable? Are they feasible? Are they usable? Another way to think about the value of discovery is, can we test something? We call it test it, nail it, before we scale it. Test it, nail it, scale it. Some cool techniques for doing discovery would be following the Mobius loop by doing discovery and then delivering, or even leveraging things like the 5-day sprint, or just building some fun mock-ups and showing them to customers quickly and getting very rapid feedback so that you can begin to experiment before you actually build. Now let's come into the teams. How do I want to organize and design my teams? I want to organize my teams so they can flow outcomes. So whether they're business teams or technology teams, whether they're product or engineering teams, and regardless of their reporting structure, we want to organize teams together in a virtual way so they can enable the flow of outcomes. To support this system that is designed to flow outcomes at the very top, we need leadership agility. We need to shift from the very directive style that we have today into more of enabling autonomy and delegating decisions down. We need to also invest in developing talent, because through this journey, you're going to see there's a lot of new roles that are going to be created, and a lot of roles that are today will need to shift, including the role of leaders. So developing talent and investing in growing our skills is another critical enabler. And when you enable the flow of outcomes across your enterprise, you will arrive at true business agility, where you are disrupting before you are disrupted. You become a learning organization, and you can thrive in a competitive market. Thank you for watching.
Great. So what's your impression, Mo? What resonated with you from this? For anybody that's online, you can go ahead and submit as well. What part of this video resonated?
And I was actually taking notes as we were going along. I think one of the differences is the talent development aspect of it. One of the key things around digital and access to technology, a lot of people feel threatened that their jobs are at risk, with digital transformation-based initiatives. And the example that I keep on using is the introduction of the ATM. And at the time, when it first launched in the South African context, Standard Bank was one of the first financial institutes to release it, and it was actually called the Auto Bank. And a lot of the branch staff people actually felt threatened to say that this is going to take over their jobs, because it would do one of the roles that they would typically do, which is validate that the user is who they are, make sure that they have enough money in their account for what they're requesting, and actually dispense that money. And what happened was actually quite the opposite. It actually freed up a lot of those bank tellers' time so that they could create real meaningful relationship with the customers and look for cross-selling and upselling opportunities. And the fact that, talent development is one of the key focuses around the flow of outcomes and using it as an enabler, I think that's one thing that definitely stood out for me, as well as that notion of test it, nail it, and scale it, around validating your product ideas and hypotheses as quickly as possible before you move into the software development lifecycle or the project delivery lifecycle. I think that's also vitally important, taking into consideration some of the lean approaches and lean models around it. I do also see some challenges as well, that a lot of companies here within South Africa actually face, and it was more along the lines of the leadership agility, and it was a question that I wanted to unpack a little bit more with you in terms of, how do you actually promote and enable leadership agility to empower teams and drive that autonomy within those respective areas or groups?
Yeah, leadership agility is one of the core pillars of EBA. So this is a good segue for me, Mo, just to introduce at a high level one of our most popular radars, and I'm showing it to you not in the radar view, but just in the model view, is EBA, Enterprise Business Agility. So for an organization to be able to successfully mature towards that video that I kind of described, these are the 7 pillars that they have to invest in building capabilities around. And leadership and culture and leadership agility is one of them. But I'm going to give you a quick overview of all of them so that everybody can see it. Customer seat at the table is really the muscle that you are learning now around product management and product discovery, and really understanding who the customer is and what problem are you solving for them. Instead of ideas being generated from my head, ideas need to be generated from the actual problem discovery from the customer. And it's not just what the customer is saying that they want, but it's us anticipating their needs, because we're so deeply enriched in what their problem is and what the future can hold that we can even be innovative. So customer seat at the table is really getting so close to understanding the customer, maturing product management as a practice, maturing product discovery, and maturing learning and experimenting and design thinking. Lean portfolio management is really around outcome-based alignment, shifting from only output-based planning, projects and initiatives and epics and deliverables, into actually saying, what are the strategic outcomes I need to accomplish 3 years, 1 year, and quarterly? And even a 3-year, I would say, is even too long because everything changes in the next 3 years. But at minimum, for this next 1 year, 12 months, what are the outcomes? We use a format called OKR. And then how can these outcomes be broken into quarterly outcomes? And how can I make sure that all of the work is aligned to this outcome? And I'm doing quarterly capacity and demand planning, not just once a year, as many companies do today. I also have to shift my funding models, Mo. I have to think about not funding projects, but funding stable teams and really funding outcomes and measuring success based on, am I getting my outcomes, not just did I get it done on time and on budget. That's more of the traditional way of thinking about funding. Organizational structure and design is about organizing teams in a cross-functional way, regardless of reporting structure. We call them virtual cross-functional teams. Some people use the word value stream. Some companies love the word value stream. Some companies hate the word value stream because it's overloaded. It doesn't matter. We're talking about cross-functional teams that can work and align towards an outcome and get these outcomes done regardless of the reporting structure. Role agility is close to that talent development we're talking about. Identify some of these roles that will have to shift and develop a plan, and then build some internal COEs, communities of practice and enablement teams that will teach others and upskill others. So talent development is so important, which is why we need enablement teams. Agile is so important, but I like to show this big picture because the whole thing isn't just agile. Some people think by adopting a specific method in agile, like that's it. And I'm saying, agile is more of the how you're going to optimize your delivery. And we definitely want to, use it for technology teams. We want to scale it. We want to even apply some agile practices to business team, but it's one of the 7 pillars, not the only pillar. Leadership and culture is what Mo just asked about. How will we make this real? And I will say it starts from the top, Mo. Executives and leaders in the line of business, in the group, themselves have to learn about what is EBA, what is enterprise business agility, what is required of them to do differently. How can they begin to shift? And some people say it's all about shifting from command and control to servant leadership. That is one aspect. There's a lot more. Outcome-based planning and not just project details and when am I going to get something done by when. It's more outcome-based. Removing obstacles and asking team, what is hindering you and what can I do as an executive to help remove obstacles? Talent development and making sure you're investing in talent development, organizing teams the right way and moving away from rewarding executives and other leaders for their silo performing and beginning to create reward systems across leadership teams on cross-functional collaboration on outcome. So yes, the leadership style shifting is definitely one of the big things, but there's so much more to it. The metrics that you're going to be looking at as leaders is quite different. Like I mentioned before, we're going to look at maturity, performance, and outcomes. We're not just going to have a traditional scorecard. So I think leadership agility development programs need to be created, and they need to be quarterly, continuously, and not a one-time workshop. And there needs to be, we do an assessment, the leadership agility baseline assessment, and then pair them and make sure there's accountability. So it's a program, it's not a course, I always say. If you want to transform leaders, it's a journey. The 6th pillar is really around make it stick, which is building internal change agents, continuously measuring and growing, which is why we created AgilityHealth, and then bringing HR to the table. I will tell you, it's a lesson learned for us. The sooner you can get your HR and talent development partners, the better, more sustainable the transformation will be. Some HR departments are very modern, and this is like totally their wheelhouse, and some of them are very traditional, and they'll be like, this is not my priority. So hopefully you've got the right kind of partner. And then digital transformation and technology agility was just one of the pillars in EBA. But we felt strongly that it required its own radar, which is why, Mo, we kept it here, technology agility as a slice, but a lot of CIOs wanted to measure how are we doing toward digital transformation. And so we decided, yes, keep it in the EBA radar, which is a lot more focused on the structure and the organizational capabilities, but create a separate radar completely for digital. So that's where we can go next.
100%. And I do see that there is a question that came through, or not necessarily a question, but a comment from Rafael. And he said that focusing on outcomes as opposed to output is one of the key drivers. And just to comment on that, like one of the things that we see project teams especially do is working in a Scrum environment is they focus so much on the number of story points that they've burnt, like over a sprint cycle, as opposed to, what are the actual outcomes? What business value are you actually driving through some of those key metrics or metrics as well? So that's just one of the comments that came out as well.
And it sounds easy, but it's actually very difficult. Outcome-based planning is one of the hardest thing your organization's going to do. And I'm just going to share my screen just to show you a screenshot of what Agility Health looks like. But when we say outcome-based planning, we're saying at the company level, you should have 3-year, 1-year, and quarterly outcomes. And that's what we call your demand. At the company level, you have portfolios. So at the company level, I'm going to look at these portfolios and say which portfolio is going to own which outcome. And then at the portfolio level, I have product teams, and each product team has teams underneath them. We want to align outcomes down, Mo. We don't want to cascade them. Cascading outcomes means that the people above, they create the outcomes of the OKR, and then they tell you to go do it. We really want it to be a collaborative thing that people do on a yearly and a quarterly basis, because these key results, some of these are what we call impact metrics, which means it's the final, like, this is why I'm paying for this outcome. And some of them are leading indicators. And I will tell you, executives are really good at impact metrics. They don't do a great job thinking about the leading indicators, which are the things that are within our control. And we believe strongly that outcomes should be highly visible and everybody in the company should be able to access them so that every team can answer the question of how does my work, whatever epics that you've got in Jira, whatever work that you're doing, how does it align to this outcome? So can I answer that question of, is this valuable? Is it not valuable?
100%. And then love the notion of being transparent and making sure that everyone that's adding towards the end goal has visibility of that end goal and is working towards that end goal. Absolutely love it. All right. And so Sally, you were going to talk us through a little bit around the digital transformation radar, the meat of this discussion,
Yeah.
one of the key points. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about it. Where did it originate from? And, where does it actually get applied?
Well, digital transformation, and I'll just take you to the radar directly so I can zoom into it a little bit more. It came because everybody was saying, so yes, we're doing digital. Yes, we're doing digital. But when I say, but what does digital mean? I got so many conflicting definitions, Mo, like so many different. So what we ended up doing is like, okay, pause. This is what we do well, is we can bring a group of experts together and thought leaders and actual practitioners and help them create a common definition and a path forward. Like, what does crawl, walk, run, fly look like? And so we met with at least 25 to 30 different senior executives and digital transformation experts to say, how would you define digital? What's missing here? What would be crawl, walk, run, fly? And that's really where this was born. So I'll walk you through the wheel quickly. You're going to see in this section and this section similarities to EBA. But then everything else after that is like purely from a technology perspective. So customer and product strategy is very similar to in EBA, the customer seat at the table. Understanding our customer, focus and engagement, discovery and validation, but we also now added optimizing the digital experience. That was not in the EBA. So this was new and very important, obviously. The digital business model. Do you have a market strategy that thinks about digital and thinks about how are you going to monetize your digital, right? So you're thinking in new products, new avenues, new lines of business that can actually bring you money from digital. Have you prioritized your portfolio of investments to make digital at the forefront of what you're investing in, as opposed to a side project that you're doing? Did you shift your operating model? So we talked about these cross-functional teams that can all work together to make your business outcomes a reality. If digital transformation is one of your business outcomes, have you shifted your operating models and created cross-functional teams and moved away from silos and really built agile teams that can work together, remove all these dependencies without a lot of friction? Have you evaluated the leadership and the culture? Things like what you just said. I'm so afraid my job is going to be, replaced. That's a cultural fear from digital. Are your leaders even? I mean, everybody says, yes, let's go do it. But do they know what that means for them as a leader? Have you looked at the digital talent? We need so many more data acumen, data experts. We need people with digital experience, with customer, with usability. I mean, usability and design and CX and product management. And I can't tell you, so business outcome creation, all those things are missing gaps today. and need to be upskilled very quickly. So have you designed a plan to do that? Have you brought in agile ways of working or agility ways of working across all of your teams? Or are you still doing waterfall, right? That's not going to help you get to digital if you're still in a very traditional old school, hand off the process. The bottom area is very technology oriented. So the core technology, have you shifted to an adaptive architecture? Whether it's shifting to the cloud and creating more of a service model and publishing APIs as the main way to communicate? Have you modernized your legacy platforms and maybe created a service layer on top of them, or rewritten them, or moved them again to the cloud? Have you brought in process automation and RPA? Have you brought in smart technologies and Internet of Things and IoT? Have you looked at some of the enabling and emerging tech, such as 3D printing or VR, or some of the things that are just emerging to see, does it fit within your market? And have you looked about your data and strategy and governance? Can you visualize and analyze data? Can you adopt machine learning, not just because it's a fancy word, but to actually give you an advantage? And have you thought about monetizing your data? From a trust and compliance and security perspective, do you have a strategy around it? Did you look at some of the security and the controls internally and externally? How responsive and resilient are you to threats? And have you thought about data and ethics and privacy and trust, because you're going to have so much data? All of these are qualitative metrics. They're all behaviors, practices. The quantitative metrics that we measure at the end to see if you've achieved digital transformation is innovation, time to value, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, and then also cutting some cost and being more efficient operationally. That's your big tour around the digital radar, Mo. I'd love to just pause and see if the audience that's watching has questions, comments, or if you want to dig deeper and maybe share your own experience as IQ Business, running some of these radars with some of your customers.
100%. And I think to a large extent, a lot of companies have put quite a bit of focus in the customer and product strategy. And, even from the digital business model, I feel like a lot of the companies have already put down, some level of it down. However, there is no coherent golden thread, if I can put it that way, that kind of loops everything together. Even from a technology perspective, there's certain key individuals that look after technology and they drive in the technology aspect to it. A lot of the digital business model, they focus or have a keen focus on the customer and experience side of things and seeing how they can actually leverage it. One of the key challenges that I've seen or I've been a part of is, how do you actually get the golden thread to loop around, each of these different key areas? And like you were saying in the beginning, structure your organization to eliminate those silos and get them to start working together. It's definitely a shift in the right direction. I think just a lot of companies are taking or are a little bit slow to the game in terms of, actually actioning it, if I can put it that way.
Well, one key step in that, the pulling the thread the right way, is a lot of companies today are structured in the departments. The technology systems are like the teams in the back end, and then the front end is like the lines of business that have a P&L. And there's a shift right now to thinking about, for example, the customer journey. So there's companies that are saying, look, acquiring a customer, servicing a customer, engaging with the customer. These are like the various steps that are in the customer journey. And I'm going to start to think about, how can I understand my capabilities that are required to satisfy each journey step? Who are the product teams that are needed to align to those capabilities? And then who can be the journey owners? And so that is one way of designing a value stream. It's called a customer journey-based value stream. Some companies might create a value, but I'm saying beginning to end, technology and business, we start to organize, because then I can do all these things in that, and make sure I've optimized that entire journey end to end. But some people don't do customer journey based value stream. They'll say it's more around channel, or it's more around customer segment. I really want my commercial versus my consumer versus my international. So there's 5 different value streams models, Mo, that people can leverage. I only gave an example of the customer journey because it's very popular right now, but it doesn't mean it's the only one. But a lot of companies are at least saying, it doesn't make sense for me to have business organized in the P&L format and technology is completely organized based on the platforms. You know what I mean? And who reports to who. And that there's really no alignments like spaghetti to try to get anything, which creates a problem because I have a digital vision, but the digital vision can't be thread through an organization that can't even see things in a common fashion.
100%. And I'm just having a look on the comments as well. So somebody has come back and saying the qualitative and quantitative aspects of the model make sense. I think one of the questions would be, the innovation metrics, time to value, etc. How does that actually get measured?
Sure. I mean, I can show you some of the questions that we have over here for time to market, but you should have your own outcomes. Remember those outcomes, the outcomes dashboard that I just showed you? Let me go back to it. So in my opinion, every company should have its own specific metrics related to digital in their outcome dashboard with key results, because there can't be a universal number that I can give all of you to all use at the same time. But the question that we ask over here is, we don't even measure time to market for our products and services. That would be pre-crawl. We're learning about the benefits of tracking time to market. We are tracking lead time and exploring how to leverage it. We use lead time. So we've given you here some ideas for lead time to value, which is the moment that you have a MVP, and I'm not talking about a feature or a story. You guys understand this is way above a feature and a story. We're talking about, you have a product you're trying to take the market, and maybe that product has the first MVP, the first minimal viable, where the market can begin to respond. Because remember, it's test it, nail it, scale it. I'm not talking about the big launch. I'm talking about, you have an amazing idea, and the very first time this idea is going to hit, even as an MVP one, how long does it take? Does it take you a year? Or does it take you 3 months? If you gave me your idea, I would find a way in 3 months to give you something that can be tested in a very small scale in the market, because getting feedback to me is the most important thing, even if it's a high fidelity prototype test, you know what I mean? So that's what we mean by time to value, is how long does it take from a lead time. But what you'll see in the radar is we give you indications that can be general across all companies, but every company should have one outcome card that's my achieve digital transformation success. And these would be the key results. And you should set your own individual targets. So when you say operational efficiency, by what percent? Employee engagement, from what to what? What was it before? What is it now? Customer satisfaction. What are the key 3 metrics that you're using? NPS is great, but there's got to be more than just that. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, extremely helpful, extremely helpful. Sally, just to touch base, when would you actually utilize this model, and, what's some of the key metrics that you'd be able to get out of it?
I'd use it now to plan for 2022. So I think that the digital transformation radar is a great, you can do it twice a year, definitely, like every 6 months. I think that's great, but definitely now as you're planning for next year. Even EBA, they are both designed to be strategic radars that help you understand where you are today and develop a strategy for the next 12 months, and then break that strategy into quarterly outcomes, and then begin to execute quarterly against it. So when would you do it? I would do it now. I mean, all of you, every company that's listening to this right now has already invested in some of this. There's no one that hasn't done any of this. The question is, there's a lot here. If you want to accelerate your journey, and that's our job, that's what we do, is help you accelerate the journey, you have to be intentional about seeing the full picture, because you might get too confused and lost just focusing here. Or you might get like, oh, it's all about data and security. If you don't see the big picture, how can you accelerate it? So I would say, Mo, start now. Build a strategy do this in Q4 and build your strategy for 2022. And you've got amazing partners here with IQ Business that can help you with that. And then, people say, when do I remeasure? Yes, you can just do it once a year. I would prefer every 6 months for something like this one. And some companies might even do it quarterly. It depends on how big you create as your growth items. So every quarter, if you're able to get these growth items done, then you can do this quarterly, especially if you've made smaller milestones. Or you can do it 2 or 3 times a year.
And by the sound of things, it sounds like this is actually a tool that can be used to understand where you are at the moment before you actually start on your journey, and a mechanism or a tool to actually track, how have we done compared to the last time. So retrospectively, taking into consideration some of the key metrics. Maybe you can give us a little bit more detail and information around that.
Yeah, I mean, just this is the EBA radar. Let me just go over here a little bit. So this is the Enterprise Business Agility Radar. And I think this one, do I have one? I wanted to show you one that has a before and an after. Do you guys have one that's a before and after? 1 second. But there's a journey, and the journey is, how have we improved? Because to be honest with you, some of this stuff is very hard to quantify, and that's our whole purpose, is how can we quantify that we've actually improved on the journey? So I'll show you one over here where we actually do have, this is like multiple steps in the journey. And if I can click over here now, and this is on EBA, I'll be able to see, okay, show me Q1 and Q2, and show me between those two quarters, or those two, did we actually get better at lean portfolio management, at org structure, leadership agility? By what % did we improve? And then you might dig a little bit deeper into some of these dimensions. Let's just say it was the technology agility, and see by what areas did you improve and why did you improve? So the point here is you're going to pick 2 or 3 things. You're going to put a growth plan on what you're going to do to help them get better. And then you got to measure. I mean, people that are paying for digital transformation, they want to know. It's very unfair for people to pay millions of dollars and not see any kind of actual progress towards change. It's all, we feel like we've gotten better. We feel like our digital experience has gotten better. We should start measuring as well.
100%. And I think a lot of organizations are still focused on the KPI route, where there's a specific number that they actually need to track, and that's how they gauge success. Doesn't necessarily, speak to the outcomes part of it in terms of, what is it that you actually want to achieve? Winning over X amount of clients, sure, it's great and it looks amazing on paper, but what value has that actually brought to the organization by having, having met that specific objective?
Yeah, KPIs reflect your end goals, but outcomes reflects your strategy to get there. I don't know if that's, helpful for people to think about. So I want to conquer the market and have, 60% market penetration. Okay, that's cool. That's like your 2-3 year KPI, but your outcome tells me a lot more if you actually know the strategy to get there. And the problem that we have, Mo, is we create so many KPIs that are awesome and great. And then we just expect that if I give you a list of 25 initiatives, that they're going to get you there. That's a very invalid assumption. That's a hypothesis, right? It's an experiment that you're thinking that these initiatives are going to get you to your KPI. So outcomes is the missing step in the middle that says, no, in the next 12 months, if that was the metric that you're trying to reach in the next 2 years, market penetration, customer revenue increase, what is your strategy this year to get there? And how will you measure that your strategy is successful or not? So and that's why there's difficult. That's why outcome-based planning is so difficult, because it's a strategic activity that reflects, honestly, the insight of the executives and the leaders. And does this company actually know how it's going to win in the market?
100%. And Sally, maybe, just if you don't mind sharing, a couple of experiences that you've had, or use case, just to make it a little bit more real, of a case study that you've run, one of these digital transformation radars with, and what were some of like the key findings or outcomes that really, resonated in that specific area?
I was going to take, because you said case study, so I'm just going to take you up over here to case studies. I want to show you some case studies that just measurement and improvement, right? It doesn't matter what the radar is, but investing in measuring and improving definitely has an impact. And so on our website, we've got some really great examples from, this is one of the largest banks here in the United States that had 23,000 people measure where they are today around their agile, digital, and DevOps. So this wasn't an executive level, it was a team level agile and digital and DevOps assessment. And to what extent has the team adopted, cloud, APIs, automation, test, all of the things that enable digital, because digital doesn't just come from the top. All of your teams actually have to have all of these, the automation that they need, the CI/CD, the pipeline creation. And you can see over here by what % that they've improved. And this is another financial firm that had 90 agile teams improve their performance. So definitely take a look here to see, and there's a lot of details inside each one of them for what was the business problem that they're trying to solve. And what I noticed is that, some people, their goal for measurement, in this example for this company, their objective is, they said, look, we can't keep going one area at a time and try to transform. We have 23,000 people, 2,300 teams. Some of them are traditional, some of them are agile, some of them are waterfall, but they have to learn this new stuff now. They need to baseline now. So it wasn't just about getting the data from them, Mo, it was even educating people on what is this journey. So if you're using the digital transformation radar, or if you're reading even the DevOps or the team health, part of what you're trying to do is even help people understand, what does good look like? What does this journey look like? I mean, me just walking you guys through that radar, that was educational for you. Imagine if you actually answered the questions and saw your baseline. And so that's what this company wanted to do, is very quickly make sure that 23,000 people understood the future and created a backlog, even if it's only 3 to 4 things that they're going to do, and actually improve. The biggest gap that we saw, or the lessons learned for us, is that teams get very excited about measure and grow, and they will actually begin to take accountability for some of the things that they came up with. Management layer, they don't know how to remove obstacles yet. So what happens with this whole measure and grow is that you identify things that are within the control at the team level, but there are some things that emerge that are cross-team or cross-organizational, and nobody feels like they own it, Mo. They kind of just sit there. Everybody's like, who's doing what? Who's doing what? So we've learned as a lesson is that we have to build continuous improvement leadership teams within each organization that is a group of managers and directors that become the first line to actually make this backlog their backlog, have the right meetings around them, use Agile, every 2 weeks, get something done. Every month, demo back to the teams and to the leaders what problems you've removed, what obstacles. And that's the only way to get the engine of improvement, because that's the whole goal of this. So those are just some lessons learned, is that, there's got to be a big focus on organizational impediments, not just the impediments that are within our control that are fast. Because when you do the digital transformation, I think you're going to see that there's talent gaps all over the company. And I would say talent development will probably rank number 1. And if you watch, there's a lot of webinars that we did with digital transformation. The chief chief learning officer from Intel was one of our guests. And he said that talent is like number 1 objective for Intel. And it's for leadership too, developing leadership talent. And he has 11 digital skills that they are accelerating all across Intel in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's a very big goal for them. Another leader will tell you that the org design, the operating model, and moving to a cross-functional operating model would be a second very big challenge. And then definitely outcome-based alignment doesn't exist everywhere. So if I had to pick 3, I'm not saying the cloud and the API and all those things and the security is not an issue, but I'm finding that technology issues, the technology teams know how to solve them once they become a priority. It's some of these cross-organizational challenges that become very difficult.
100%. And that's actually an interesting point. More and more, as we're going through, helping some of our clients accelerate some of their transformational based initiatives, etc. Everyone points fingers and says technology is the problem, technology is the bottleneck. And then we always say that given the right mandate, anything is technically possible. And the rate of change in which technology is actually making an impact, it's phenomenal. The introduction of APIs and how do you make things open and accessible and, speak to other teams, etc. And that's an interesting insight that you just mentioned is, technology, given the mandate, I think, they can, smash out whatever obstacles that they have in their way to deliver it. But I think that mandate aspect is quite important in a lot of those scenarios.
I mean, think about this. Everybody must work from home in the next week. Go. That's what happened in COVID, right? I mean, it was like, that was a mandate. You got 1 week, everybody's going to work from home. What are you talking about? That's normally a 2-year project. Well, in 1 year. I spoke to one of our big customers here is the Federal Reserve. 1 week, you have to be able to process something called PPP, the payroll payment protection. It's something that the government enabled small businesses to give them money back so they can survive. And that was something that the Federal Reserve had never done before at that scale. And all of a sudden it was like, you got 2 weeks or 3 weeks maybe, and you have X millions of transactions that will be processed through the system, go. And they did it. So nobody has to doubt that we all just got a boot camp on how teams are capable of enabling digital transformation if there's the mandate, if there's alignment, and if there's a clear outcome. And that's what had to happen is, and I love that one of the leaders at the Federal Reserve said, we had to get out of their way also. Like we told them what we needed done. We explained the problem. Everybody understood it clearly. We empowered them and we just got out of their way and we allowed them to be innovative about how to solve the problem. Today, we spend way too much time dictating solutions.
100%. And I love that model of providing autonomy to individuals, because you'll be surprised what they're actually able to deliver given that mandate and given that empowerment to solve those problems. And Sally, one of the things that I wanted to ask is who would typically run, because in one of your previous use cases you were mentioning with the big financial institute, is they needed to run it across the 2,300 teams that they actually needed to get it across. And like who typically run one of these EBA or the digital transformation model? So does it come from the high management or C-level executives and then trickle down? Who actually runs it and how does it work in practice?
Sure. Whether it's EBA or digital, the process to adopt it, one starts with a webinar. So just like this, because we always say learn, measure, grow. Remember that, learn, measure, grow. So you don't want to just jump in or just like publish a survey to people. That's very old school and that does not create a continuous improvement movement. So let's say that I'm just going to like fictitiously create a company and the company has 5 lines of business, or maybe even 5 delivery work streams from a technology perspective. Let's say I'm the CIO and I've got 5 different groups underneath me. And that's typically what's going to happen with digital, right? Is it's going to be ran across the digital, areas and the digital work streams. I believe that if you can get the CIO's buy-in and input, that the webinar should be done at the CIO level with all of the heads of the various work streams coming together to understand what does digital transformation look like. But when you actually launch the assessment, you would launch it to them individually, so within their own groups, and you would facilitate the assessment review and the growth planning session with them independently. So you would definitely have consultants like yourself, Mo, assisting with this because you understand the radar. But each work stream under the CIO or each portfolio, whatever they're calling that group, some people call it different things, the leaders in that group that are in charge of transforming this group should come together into this measure and grow workshop, review the results of the radar, analyze it together using a facilitator, as we've taught you guys how to do, and then build an improvement plan and an action plan forward in a roadmap, because measurement without action is worthless data. So that's typically, so step number 1 is education. And then we launch the assessment and make sure that everybody answers the question. Step number 2 is growth planning. So you go to these various groups and you do the growth planning session and make sure that they're committed to action. And then step number 3 is you roll up the data across the 5 different domains under that CIO. And you have a leadership readout because you will start to see some patterns in the radar that are common across all of them. So again, this is what I meant by there are some local changes that they can control. I guarantee you're going to find some enterprise impediments and obstacles that it will have to be handled at the CIO and above level, which is why we always say optimize, locally when you can, but visualize and see patterns and then optimize globally. So we're doing both. Does that make sense, Mo?
Yeah, definitely. It's about making sure that the mandate is coming from the top down and making sure that you also have a honest view of the people that's physically experiencing these challenges, providing that input so that they can be real actionable outcomes in delivering against what that objective or that key result is that the company is looking for. Love it. And then Sally, also, I just want to remind the audience on the line, feel free to ask any questions, post comments, etc. We can pretty much see how many we can actually go through, but just want to encourage everyone to, engage, ask as many questions as you want, or share some of your comments in the chat, and we'll see if we can, speak to a couple of them as well. And while we're waiting for that, Sally, I just want to, touch on that aspect that you were talking about, which was the test it, nail it, and scale it, and about being as lean as possible and delivering value to customers as possible, or validating your product ideas or hypothesis before you actually move into the implementation cycle. One of the things that you mentioned in that video that I've seen is, there's the 5-day sprints and things like that. Do organizations actually, as part of the the digital transformation radar, do people, actively put together models or innovation workshops that speaks directly to that aspect, like in terms of validating product ideas and hypotheses? Where do you see that typically sit within that model?
Radar? Yeah, it's under product discovery. So if you look under the product and market strategy, that the yellow part that's at the top, there's the notion of understanding the customer and then problem and solution discovery. So anytime we talk about discovery, that is the practice of doing design thinking, doing the 5-day sprint, doing the Mobius loop from Gabriella. That's a wonderful model for product discovery. Just doing rapid prototyping, that's also rapid, but that is where it fits. It fits in that product and strategy area under product discovery, and experimenting and learning. And you'll see that there. And obviously optimizing the digital experience is another competency that's there. And I wanted just to make a quick comment before I forget, is that the teams that are going to be going through the EBA or the digital, make sure they're cross-functional. For example, the EBA assessment, because it's very much around business and technology aligning around all these, should not be just an IT team doing that, technology team. That would be like dead on arrival, because the EBA is about business agility. So you definitely want to bring in a cross-functional group of leaders from business, from technology, from HR, maybe even a finance person, and from the PMO, and then your change agents. That's kind of that cross-functional group that can do EBA together. Digital is more technical, but it doesn't mean that you can't bring your product management team, into it as well to provide their input on that product side. And it doesn't mean that, some of the other leaders can't join, even though, yes, it's more technology focused, but just be very thoughtful that the transformation leadership team that you're bringing together is cross-functional and not just, well, I own IT, so let me just get all my IT people to do it. You're kind of missing the point of the cross-functionality of the radar.
100%. And then fully support that as well. Like one of the things that we actually run within our company is called a concept discovery sprint, which focuses on, validating some of these product ideas and hypotheses quickly before you move into the SDLC process. And one of the key things that we say within that workshop is you have to bring a numbers person or a finance person. You have to have a product owner who's going to make the ultimate decision should we hit the deadlock. You have to bring in a compliance person, a tech person, and together we will co-create whatever this value proposition is and validate it through that model. And I've seen also, where it only becomes an IT play or only a business play, there's bound to be, challenges down the line, as opposed to, bringing everyone in the loop ahead of time, making sure that each of their needs are represented and addressed accordingly before moving actually forward in that regard.
Use it as an opportunity to bring them together. A lot of people use these webinars and these assessments, these workshops, because they're highly facilitated, well facilitated, as an opportunity to bring technology and business together in an educating, it's not very difficult. Do we have any questions online? We only got 3 minutes left.
Yeah, having a look at the chat quickly, I don't see any comments coming through.
I'd love feedback. Feedback is a gift. Did you guys enjoy this? Did you learn anything useful today? Feedback is also awesome. So please engage if you're online. I'm sure you're busy multitasking at work, but come back for a second.
100%. But here in South Africa, we actually, it's 5:30 in the evening. So a lot of people.
That's right. So they're eating dinner. They're eating dinner right now. Or what time do you eat dinner?
So usually around 6 to 7, but I got a feeling some of the people are actually preparing dinner at the moment.
Okay. I've been to Cape Town, so I can't wait to come back again.
No, you have to come to Johannesburg as well. Cape Town is beautiful, but Johannesburg is where it's at.
Yeah, where all the action's at. No, I'm going to be back. I remember my husband and I, we spent only like 2 days and we're like, this is not enough. We're going to have to come back and spend like a week or 2 weeks just to take all this in. So
100%. And I'm seeing, like a couple of comments coming in saying this is really informative. They've learned a great deal and they love the fact of inspecting and adapting at that level, because they've seen the value at the project team level, so which is also fantastic. And I see that a couple of people are saying that the radars actually give you like a good indication of where you are now in evaluating, based on your strategy, how much progress have you made? Because I think that's one of the aspects that have been lacking in some of their areas as well.
Absolutely. Great.
All right. But Sally, I think we can pretty much call it with 1.5 minutes to go. Thank you so much for your time and sharing some really cool insights and some valuable experience, taking us through the different models and your experience within working and putting together and crafting that digital transformation radar. I'm sure that a lot of people will know that you're happy to go to the AgilityHealth website. It had gone in the comms as well, that most of you must have subscribed to, and you'll be able to find a lot more videos and a quick high-level overview of each of the different radars that you currently have available in your arsenal, and show where it can actually be used to answer some of the key, driving and burning questions that most organizations are facing, which is really fantastic. So that the website, again, you guys can just Google, and I see Sally put it in the chat as well. It's
I just put the video because a lot of people love that short video that I played. So I put the video, and of course that's the website. But if anybody wants to share that video or watch it again, you're welcome to.
Fantastic. All right, thanks so much, Sally. I think we will call it there. Appreciate your time and have a fantastic day forward.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a great weekend. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.